Welcome to the Unshakable Talks with me, Katy Schweiger. This is not just another podcast. This is your girls' chat for business women. I'm going to speak to women in business, and we're not just going to have a normal conversation. We're speaking about what it really takes to build a business, to scale a business, why we are doing business, and what are the real challenges. What are the things no one actually talks out loud? What are the things which are holding us back? And what are the things which are really driving us to do what we're doing? So I believe running a business as a woman isn't harder, but it is different. So it's time we actually start talking about it. Let's get into it. On today's episode, I'm speaking to Rachel, and Rachel has a PhD and is a clinical psychologist. And we're speaking about her specialty in eating disorders, but furthermore, we're speaking about how she structured her private clinic, very different to what you would usually find if you would go to the NHS. Welcome to the Unshakable Talks, Rachel. Thank you for coming all the way to speak to me.
Oh no, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
I think our conversation is gonna be really interesting for our listeners because you are a psychologist with a PhD. Mm-hmm. You specialize in eating disorders, but you have completely diverted away from the traditional clinic setting in terms of working for the NHS. Tell me a little bit about what traditionally you would be doing coming out of university and acquiring your PhD, and how that worked and why you're doing what you're doing now.
Yes. Long story short, I'm doing what I'm doing now because I struggled with an eating disorder myself. I was actually talking to your daughter about it because she studied some psychology, didn't she? I think when you start your undergrad and you think, I want to be a psychologist, actually there's a lot more studying before you can be a psychologist. And I think the universities kind of scare you a little bit. Especially if you're a perfectionist, they say, clinical psychology is really hard to get into. So I didn't really know, I wanted to be a psychologist, but I didn't know how I could do that. But I didn't really feel I was good at anything else. So I kind of just continued, did my master's in health psychology, which unfortunately is when I started developing an eating disorder because I was trying to be really healthy. There are a lot of other factors involved, like perfectionism or getting a lot of my self-worth from having good grades, from being good at sports. And I stopped doing those things at university. I got a job as a research assistant. So I was really just trying to build up all the experience with that. Did not see that I had an eating disorder at all. Did not think I need to go to therapy. I thought I'm being healthy. Why is everyone telling me that I'm not okay when I obviously am, but I obviously wasn't. Lived abroad a while, had a terrible time because I had an eating disorder, came back. And then I started my PhD. I did get a bit of support in that time for the eating disorder. Started my PhD. I didn't do clinical psychology, which I think is what a lot of people would want to do. I went in the research route, decided research is not for me. That was actually playing into the eating disorder more. All the time that I was thinking, right, this research has to be perfect because, if you're going to put it in a peer-reviewed journal, people are obviously going to review it. But I was so scared of the criticism of that I actually wasn't doing the work.
Right.
It was like that fear of failure was so massive. And then for me, the eating disorder started off as restrictive. Maybe if people have an eating disorder, they might relate that you kind of get to this point that you've restricted for so long, then often people experience primal hunger. So it's like once you start eating, I couldn't stop eating. I was waking up in the middle of the night, just binging on stuff in the kitchen, stuff that I knew my mum wanted to eat, but I was just eating it and felt like I couldn't control it. That was just before I started my PhD.
Okay.
Just to be super blunt, then I started making myself throw up because I was like, I don't want to have eaten that food. Why am I eating all this food and I can't stop myself? Which, it's a dangerous thing to do, but you feel so desperate at the time. Things were kind of better when I started my PhD, but then I could say that just fear of failure was coming into it. And sorry, I just feel like stressed.
So what I hear from this is that everything was run by your fear of failure. Everything was run by being perfect at everything you're doing and starting. That's the two things I really hear from here, because I think someone listening to this would maybe, who doesn't know anything about, not much about mental health and eating disorders and all of this, would maybe say, well, maybe studying psychology or doing a PhD isn't really the greatest thing to do if you're suffering from an eating disorder. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe people think that. So, but for you, you just kept going, didn't you? Because there was always
I think that it was like a catch-22. Like, that's the way to show I'm good at something, because historically I've been good at studying. I got praised for studying. Like, my grandma gave me £20 when I was good in an exam. Like, that was it. So I think I was trying to reclaim that sense of it, while also not really knowing. I knew I wanted to be a psychologist, but I still didn't know how to get there. So I went down the research route, and then I think things really changed when, like I said, it just started being a coping mechanism for everything. Like, any other big feelings, I started like binge eating because of it. So the restriction kind of stopped, that I was binging, still making myself sick. I moved into a flat in my second year by myself, and things just got really bad because I like didn't really have accountability not to do it, and that was the main coping mechanism. And I guess why I'm doing what I'm doing now, how I'm doing it. I was looking online at different programs, at different therapists, and I just thought like none of these are going to work for me. There was something so wrong with me that I had savings, but I wasn't going to spend it on that therapy because I thought there's just something so wrong with me. So I did go down the NHS route to seek help. But I kind of wanted more autonomy in it. And they were saying, you need to be weighed every session. I didn't want to be weighed. They were saying like, well, we think you need medication to get over this because of how severe it is. I am not anti-medication, but for me at that point, I wanted to pursue, like, can I understand what's going on for me before I would try that? And they weren't offering that. And also I think as well, like, relationship is really important to me. Yeah. And so just being paired with someone that I didn't know their background, didn't know their history. Actually, a lot of psychologists gets taught, like, don't self-disclose. But to me, I want to know something about the person who I'm talking to, and build that relationship, which I think is why I wanted to go in private practice. Yeah. So I can do that myself. I can tell clients like, look, I've also been there. You know, if they ask me a question, I'm quite happy to answer, which I feel like if I was working in a service, I feel like I would have to be a lot more guarded.
So that's a bit the relatability factor, isn't it? Like, when you relate to someone, you immediately feel more understood straight away. So clients who come to you who suffer from an eating disorder will probably more likely listen to you, what you have to say, than for someone who hasn't gone through this themselves. And you have that, by doing a private clinic, what you just said, you have that flexibility, because if you would have stayed within the NHS, there's obviously very strict guidelines and recommendations on how to kind of hold your sessions. Is that correct? I
mean, I obviously understand why that is the case. You know, they're trying to build a big service, but one size doesn't fit all in this. And also I was feeling like I can build my skills as I go along. Like, I did extra training in hypnotherapy, you know, to try and get deeper with clients, understand, you know, where their issues are coming from. That I feel like if I was a client, I would like that flexibility rather than be like, okay, well, this is what we're doing. You've got 12 weeks. That's it. You know.
And your program is, I believe, for 6 months. And what is unique about this is that you actually offer support in between sessions. And your, what we in the coaching world would call onboarding process is quite lengthy, isn't it? It's, I believe, 3 hours long. Yeah. Why did you choose to do that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So actually, it was a massive thing for me when I was like, am I allowed to give support between sessions? I didn't explain that in the beginning bit, but I'm very much like a good girl, which has been a whole thing that I'm still trying to get over. But yeah, I was like, am I allowed to do this? I looked on the BPS guidelines, like, you are allowed to do it. But I think historically, or maybe not even historically, but like the thinking has been like, you don't want your client to get codependent with you. You don't want to give them too much support. You want to give them some autonomy. I guess my thinking around it is like, but they're choosing to message me, like, they're taking that initiative to do it. I want to be there to support them. My clients want to get that endpoint faster.
And that's accountability, isn't it? For me, if I would be your client, me messaging you, saying, wait, whatever it is, wait, I struggle, I had a relapse, or whatever it is me taking accountability for what's going on right there and then. So I suppose you could say that is accountability taken.
Yeah, exactly. They're not handing the power to me to say, I really don't know what to do. You tell me exactly what to do, because I don't know exactly what they need to do. We'll find it out together by exploring what's going on for them. So that was one thing. And then in terms of the 3 hour session, actually sometimes we do it as 2 90 minutes. You know, if people don't have the time or they can't do it. But I really just want people to get where they're going faster. And I think people do when they come and see me. So it's like, actually, do you want to be talking about your history for several weeks. Like I've been a client before. I've had therapy at various times for different things. Like when I was pregnant, I was very anxious about the birth. I had a traumatic birth, unfortunately, and then had therapy afterwards. But sometimes it feels like you're not getting anywhere for a few weeks, which I can understand why. If it's a trauma, you want to go carefully around it. But I really want to be able to get a really good overview for people of what is going on for you. Like what are the things that are keeping you stuck? What are the things that you're worried about? So then we can make a plan of what to do, rather than that process having to take several weeks and people feeling like, but I'm so stuck in these behaviours. And also I think the other thing that I was thinking on the drive here is like, by the time people have signed up to work with me, they have already had weeks of mulling this over in their head. Like, shall I talk to someone about it? Shall I do it? So by the time they say yes, they want to get going. I think there is a place for other services, which are more of the helping people get to that decision point. But I feel like my clients have already got to that decision point themselves.
And you doing this in the form of a private practice also means that you have to run this like a business. And being in terms of your education and your path of like being getting your PhD and everything, that's very different. It's very structured. There's a certain path you're going down to. It's very regulated. So, but actually having your own business or building your own business, there's so many different things coming to it. And have you started your private clinic after you had children or before you had children?
So before. So actually, while I was still doing my PhD, I started it. I think partly as procrastination. I stopped the binging and purging, but I was like, let me plan my wedding in 6 months and spend hours looking on Pinterest so I don't have to do my meta-analysis. And also started the business. And it was a big motivation for me to recover because I want to be able to help other people. So I do know therapists who have an eating disorder who work with people with an eating disorder. Like that's their choice. They feel safe to do that. But I felt for me, I need that to be in the past. I don't want to feel triggered by anything that a client might say to me. So I think me wanting to start it quite soon actually motivated me really. Like when I had a really strong urge, I had a lot more reasons like not to act on it. I signed with a business coach in the third year of my PhD, or was it the second? During my PhD, to kind of help me get started with that. But actually, I didn't realise till I was doing a talk and someone pointed this out to me. So my dad had his own business. My dad had a lampshade factory, which is obviously different to a service-based business, but I was a receptionist for him part of the time and I worked in the factory. So I did actually see some of like how to run a business, how to do your accounts. So I guess because I had that and I had him as a role model, without me literally thinking he's a role model, but obviously he was, I suppose maybe that was why I was more willing to be like, actually, let me have a business for myself.
But what are because I built multiple businesses. And I've built my first business when I had a 3.5-year-old child in a country where I didn't speak the language. So I know the struggles we're going through. Back in the days, there were no communities you could join. There were no business coaches out there or anything like this where I could kind of seek support. So this factor of like doing it on your own and trying to figure it out, which is completely, yes, you come from an entrepreneurial background in terms of your family, but completely out of your comfort zone. It's not really what you've trained to do or what you are seeing yourself doing. What did that mean to you? So you hired a business coach. How was that experience?
It was all right, actually. I think at the time as well, I wasn't working with people with eating disorders. It was more about behaviour change. Okay. Because that's what my master's was in. So I felt like I'm qualified to do this at this point. A little bit about emotional eating, which was kind of code for binging, but I didn't want to say that. So I guess as well, I had the health food blog. And I built up a network through that, and I'd learned like how to write a blog post and marketing your recipes and that side of things. So I feel like I just kind of took all the skills and just turned them into the business instead. I think the business coach was helpful. I think as well because it was very much like how to make your first £1,000. It was very much like this is the very beginning baby steps. Of it. I was just excited when I had my first client and, first money from it. I would say it was probably only when I finished my PhD and I could do it full time that I was really like, right, okay, you really have to make this work now. It's more than a hobby on the side.
And when you started this to make this your full-time profession, what was the first step? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, how you would, because it's very, if we're talking about a product-based business like your dad had, it's fairly simple, isn't it? You have a product, you have to market to the audience, you want to sell, so you have certain automations you have to set up to be able to sell. Service-based business nowadays is fairly, like coaching is also very easy, fairly easy, not very easy, but fairly easy in terms of the setup. But with you, because it's so specific and it's clinical and it's like, there needs to be, you need to be careful, don't you? Not everyone can, just because I had an eating disorder one day, I can't call myself an eating disorder specialist coach or something. I think there is a fine line to strike here. So what were your thought process? Have you ever thought about, if I do this now, which goes so away from what my colleagues would do, or people who are trained the same way I do, will I be seen still credible? Or those kind of thoughts. Have you ever had those thoughts? Was there ever an internal conflict you had?
Yeah, so I think for me as well, I am not a clinical psychologist, so I didn't do my training seeing different clients in the NHS. I kind of went a bit of a different way. So my PhD is like a research PhD.
Okay.
It is about eating behaviour and habits and self-control and relevant topics, but it wasn't one-to-one with clients.
Yeah.
So then I did master practitioner training in eating disorders to work with clients. I did NLP. So I kind of built up my client work in a different way, which I think... Yeah, sometimes I have been a little bit worried that someone's going to bang on my door and be like, oh, but you're not allowed to do that. And I think, well, why not? Like I did, before I got pregnant, I did think about going back to uni and doing like a counselling degree. But I thought, well, why? Because I feel like I do have the skills. When I felt like I didn't have the skill, I did an additional training to like fill that hole. So I feel pretty well spread out. So yeah, I think it does come up sometimes. But then I feel like when I did the NLP training, they were talking about, do you know when you feel like you're in a box and you don't see out of the box?
Yeah.
I feel like I was in that box, and I think a lot of people are, because you've been brought up in your psychology training to be like, well, this is the way that we do it. But I do think there are more discussions online now of people saying, well, why is that the way that we do it? Oh, there's whole, like, honestly, if you go down the rabbit hole on Instagram, you can have whole massive threads of people debating if a psychologist is allowed to drink a glass of water in the session. Like, people really think about
Why
well, what
you?
might the client think when you do that? Like,
you're thirsty. That's what I would think.
I feel like some people think, well, I'm paying for your time. Why are you having a drink or so? To me, I mean, I did think about it, but now I'm like, well, I'm modelling. I don't really think about it. But yeah, you can overthink every small decision. But I think, well, my thinking now is like, look, as long as I'm up front, this was my training, this is my experience, do you want to work with me or not? People are choosing. They're not just being paired with me. Yeah. Like if it was a service, people can choose for themselves to do it. And I think as well, because I didn't go from working in a practice to having my own practice, it's probably a little bit different. That I just kind of built it up more slowly as I was finishing my PhD at the time. With the health food blog, I was doing some like paid recipes and collaborations and things, like never really got that far off the ground, and I kind of transitioned out of that to do this. So it's kind of like just juggling a few things really that I was interested in.
But you then became a mum. You have two children who are under the age of 5, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're busy and you're having your private clinic. How does a normal day, a normal Tuesday look in Rachel's life? Combining all of
You've asked me about Tuesday. So I think as well, just to be really upfront with how I've done my service, because I give people support in between, I don't actually need a lot of clients. I don't want a lot of clients. I don't want to be seeing 20 people a week, because I really want to know about that person. So actually my one-to-one is limited to 5 people.
Okay.
I do other bits and bobs. I do like the 3-hour session as a one-off for people. And other things, but so I have got time to do extra trainings, I've got time to be with my kids. I decided, right, I'm going to work 3 days a week. So I have my kids on a Monday and a Friday. Like if my client sends me a message and I'm at soft play, we've had a discussion, are you happy for me to reply if I'm at the soft play? Yes or no? Do you want me to reply as quickly? People usually say yes. I'll just discreetly have a little reply to them, so I can mix both of those things.
So you intentionally built your business around your life as a mum.
Even before having kids, though, I just thought, I don't want to be back to back with clients. People will say it's poor boundaries, but I want to be able to go over by 10, 20 minutes in a session if the client needs that. Like, not every session, obviously, you know, let's keep to time, but I don't want to be like, well, you've had your 50 minutes. That's it now till next week.
Sometimes just something needs to be talked over a bit longer, doesn't it? And I actually would argue that this is actually a really good boundary you have in place, because this is your boundary. This is how you want to present your service. You're not taking on like loads and loads and loads of clients. So I actually think that's a good boundary. It's just different to what you would expect.
I think as well, because it's like, right, this is the 6 months. We're not counting you've paid for 1 minute here, you've paid for 1 minute there. Like, sometimes a session might be a little bit shorter. We accept that. Sometimes I might do a bit of extra work between sessions, like where I do emotional freedom technique, which is like the tapping. Sometimes I'll make people a little video. Like, that's not directly in the price. I haven't said you'll get 3 videos with me for this 6 months. But I think it does require trust from both sides that over the time it's going to work out.
So everyone in the coaching industry would stop you there and would say you're throwing money out of the window and you shouldn't really do this. You should have your boundaries straight. If you're doing if you're including tapping or 3 tapping sessions, that should be charged as an extra. I think what would you say to this?
It doesn't really matter to me in a sense, because I'm not paying per the minute. Like, I don't know. I usually say like it makes my life easier in the long run. I completely agree. Yeah. And I think as well, if it was every week, if it felt like it was too much and you feel like I don't know how to phrase it apart from like someone's taking advantage or they're saying like, do this, this and this and this. And I'm like, sounds a bit awful. But do you know sometimes when you do get a little bit resentful, like, I actually think it does.
It gets to that point where you do get resentful of the work you're doing and maybe of the client as well if they're taking too much advantage of your kindness.
If I had that, but I don't really ever. I think the only time it was really like that was so with my son, I actually went back to work after 2 weeks. I had a client session of a client that I'd had for a couple of years. Of all of it. So obviously I do the 6 months, but if people want to stay after, then they can as well. But because of the traumatic birth, I was like, I needed a distraction, and also I didn't end up breastfeeding him for very long. So I could go back to work. So 1 and a bit days a week. My parents had him from when he was a few months old. And I did it. And then I tried to do that with my daughter, but my daughter wouldn't take a bottle. So at 3 months, when she was 3 months old, I tried to get a client for Nourish, like the 6 month 1-to-1. And I was like, I can't think what the word is. I probably should know since I'm a psychologist, but like honestly, like panic mode, like adrenaline. Like I'd feed her, give her to my parents. The client would come to my home office. And then after a couple of months, we were both like, yeah, sorry, I can't do this. I mean, the client was very understanding about having a baby, and we did find someone else to see them. But I think it's, on one hand, it's nice for me to have the business that I can have that flexibility and build the hours that I want, and around that, like, but then I'm also like, you do get stuck with all the admin. If I worked for somebody else, they'd do all the admin for me.
Yes, let's speak about this, because this is what I was trying to get to earlier, because this is what business is all about, isn't it? It's the service you're offering in your case, or the product you're selling, but there's so much around it what people don't see. Like up front, you don't see what actually takes to have that clinic in your case, and to do all the admin, and combine this with being a mom from 2 young children, and I don't know if you're married, and being a wife and running a house and doing all of this, and also looking after yourself, because you mentioned you're a perfectionist. You have
I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I try and catch myself.
Are you really recovered? I don't think we're never recovered. I don't think it's actually a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, but I don't think it is necessarily a bad thing. It's also what, in my case, thrives me really within my business. I can definitely say. Obviously, you're a psychologist. You're probably going to tell me, now, Katy, this is really bad.
No, I was actually talking about this with a client the other day. There's like adaptive perfectionism and maladaptive perfectionism.
Okay.
So adaptive perfectionism is that you both set their standards high. But if you're an adaptive perfectionist, you know how to handle it if you don't meet that standard. So like if you were ill, you were supposed to be doing support and you were ill, you were like, okay, right, I can see that I'm ill. You've got that bit more self-compassion. Maladaptive perfectionist, you're beating yourself up about it. And also you kind of shoot yourself in the foot, because like I was saying earlier, like I didn't want to do stuff in case I didn't do it well. So actually, have your high standards, but, know when actually that is possible. Like you say, if you have got kids and a husband and you're trying to do all the housework and
life is just lifing sometimes, isn't it? And you being a psychologist, someone listening maybe thinks, but okay, she's telling me that she's going through the same struggles than I do, but you should really have the tools to get yourself out of them really easily. What would you say to them?
I do, but do I want to use them?
That's really honest.
Sometimes I feel like, I think for me as well, it's more about the self-awareness and noticing your patterns, because I feel like I do have a pattern of, sometimes I just have to catastrophize something and build it up in my head for like an hour or 2 hours, and then I'll get over it. And I could try and stop the catastrophizing. If I have something really important to do that I can't have that 2 hours, then I won't do it. Like, I would use the tools. But sometimes I think, sometimes stuff is really shit and you can just be like, this is really shit, I don't want to do some work, I just want to have a coffee for an hour between clients. So I think it's about the impact that those thoughts and those behaviours are having on you. I will say, when I was pregnant, I did have a lot of anxiety, because it sounds really silly, but I didn't think about, for pregnant people.
You can...
I didn't think about giving birth when we got pregnant. I just thought, do we want a child or not?
Yeah.
And then with the maternity system now, and me, people say wanting to be in control, but wanting autonomy and wanting choices and to be respected. I had a lot of anxiety about that, and I was really struggling to use the tools then, because it's like, this does feel very true to me. It feels very real. My threat response is being activated by this. And with the birth trauma as well, I did tapping, but I think there's sometimes something about someone else holding space for you and someone else validating you that is really important. Or if you're the one, I can't think of what the analogy would be or the phrase. It's not that you can't see the wood for the trees, but it's like so real and so present for you.
We all need to have a mirror held up.
With it. So I actually ended up having EMDR for that, because it was something that I haven't trained in. My logical brain won't be like, oh, that's why they're doing that. So yeah, I think you can have the tools, but like anyone, it's like, you know what to do, but are you gonna, there's reasons that you wouldn't always do it. And I think I can be compassionate with myself about that as well, and know that that's just what people do and that's what people are like. Like, I don't have to be a perfect person who's always gonna do it. Sometimes I just want to have a break.
That's so true. So when you, obviously a lot of people listening to my podcast are ambitious women. They are usually women in business, and my aim for the podcast really is to show, to make them feel like they can relate to the stories they're hearing. And I'm 100% certain they can relate to your stories. But with you being a professional psychologist, do you see certain behavior patterns within ambitious women which make us more prone to eating disorders or other mental health issues? Because I always say, I've never had an eating disorder. But I definitely am of that generation from the 90s where I say I definitely suffer from disordered eating, 100%. And I think a lot of women suffer from disordered eating for different kind of phases within your life. And specifically when we're really busy, we just forget to eat, or we then eat too much in the evening, or whatever it is. But in terms of behavior patterns, because that's what you did in your PhD as well, is there any particular behavior patterns you really see in ambitious women?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ones, and people might relate to all of them or some of them. So I now tend to work with people who have bulimia, because that was my experience of almost like when you've got your business, feeling like you need to put on the front, you need to be the business, which I feel like, yes, that is true to some extent. Like, I have my business kind of uniform, or I put my jewelry on to be my business. But I think when you're building that up so much, that then sometimes what you might call like the unhelpful behaviors, or like the binging, and how then you're maybe vomiting or exercising to like feel that control back, because you've put so much into being in control. It's almost like that's the only time you can let that mask slip, maybe when you're by yourself and it's quite secret, but you wouldn't want to let anyone else into that, because you've built up, look, this is what I am. And yes, that is true. I'm not saying that is not true. You are that person in your business. But sometimes when you give so much to that, you don't let yourself rest.
Yeah.
You don't have that downtime. And so that's when I think those behaviors can come in. And especially if then you're trying to compensate by restricting, and then maybe your blood sugar's low, you're really stressed, like the food around, it gets your attention even more. And then you're thinking, I don't want to have eaten that. And I think then it can be really tricky when like you were saying earlier, life happens, you go to an event like here, there's food provided for us, it does look lovely, but like if I was worried about what I was eating, that would be so stressful for me. And then that's taking over your mind, and then you're thinking, well, can I do a good job in this podcast because I'm just thinking about that food, and should I have that afterwards? And like, I think people don't realize with an eating disorder, like it just feels like it consumes your mind, and like you want to be able to do these other things, and like yes you do, and you show up to them, but the amount of energy that takes with all the food noise present is so much. So that would be one, the kind of like relief, off switch, dissociation from kind of binging behaviors. Or I guess kind of on the flip side, but kind of the same thing at the same time, like maybe that control is part of your personality or part of your business persona, that you don't ever want to switch it off. And so you're always thinking like, well, if I'm in, not that I was this time, but like if I'm here and there's the pastries or there's this, what will someone think of me if I eat that? I've got to pick the healthy option in this. And so that just becomes not a default, but like a very important part of who you are. But then if you're under fueling, then you can get all the consequences of under fueling, like maybe you can't think properly. Like, you know, you might physically be less healthy, you're getting ill, that's impacting your business. Or you're, maybe if it's not under eating through restriction, but like you're so concerned about the healthy side of things that you're spending so much money on that. And I guess my perception of it now is like that brain room, not the technical term, but that brain room that you're spending thinking about food could have been spent on something else. Like all that anxiety that you created around that is not helping your business.
But for me, listening to this and trying to find an angle, not relating it to food, I hear that it's related to pressure. The pressure we're putting ourselves under, the pressure of performing or being a certain way, the pressure of presenting ourselves, our businesses in a way what we think we should be doing or we should be seen as. Would you say that's true?
I think in terms of the question you asked me about high achieving women, I think different people have different reasons for binging and purging and those behaviours and what they've learned growing up. But I think specifically in terms of this, I would agree.
Okay. So looking at your business, like I said, I love the program you put together because I think there's a big need to have support in between. I personally, not that I need this particular program, but I can really see the value for someone who needs it. But where do you see yourself in 5 years' time with your business?
To be honest, I just see myself in the same place.
Really?
Of like, I actually don't want to grow a team. Like I was at a decision point when I was like, oh, I could get a clinic, but I don't want all the admin. Like I don't want to grow myself out of the business. Because it is very much me, like doing this one-to-one work, and that is what I enjoy. And so I decided this private practice so I can do that on my terms. Like I don't want to get to the next level and feel like I'm the manager. Or I think as well, like I have thought a lot about a group program, because I think people often say a group program to expand it. But I think there is merit in that. Like I do think hearing other people talk about their stories can be very beneficial. But I feel like the level that I want to go to with my clients, I don't know how I would do that with 10 people in a group if it was a group call and people have 10 minutes to say their piece. Like my clients want that whole hour to be able to talk to me between. So yeah, right now I do smaller group things, like, you know, a 4-week kind of block or something like that with like an education piece as well. But I just don't see me changing Nourish, because I really like it. I like how it's working. Maybe if it didn't. And also, I don't really want to work full time, even when my kids are at school. I kind of like the flexibility.
So you like to stick within your comfort zone then, because me being the hustling entrepreneur, I'm thinking, but Rachel, you could scale this at some point. I'm not saying step away from what you've created, because the core product is absolutely great, but me being a business coach and love the hustle and and I know how much it takes to have your own business, and I'm almost feel like want to shake you and saying, why are you capping yourself? Why?
Yeah.
Because I can see this going, like, not necessarily group program, but would you never see yourself like maybe getting involved in other people's group program as an expert, for example?
Yeah, I could. I mean, I do a little bit of that as well. I feel like I've got my finger in like a lot of little pies. Like,
tell me about those pies, because I also know you had a couple of features on the BBC and other magazines and things, according to your Instagram bio. So tell me about those little pies and how do you get them?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've done various different things. Like I did work with a PR for a little bit to get some of the things like the Vogue feature. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's just networking, isn't it? Which I feel like was easier pre-COVID. Before I had kids, like I would go to events in London and you'd meet someone and then they'll say, oh, actually, I have got an opportunity here. So it's probably more about that, which I feel like since I had kids, that kind of got shut down because I didn't want to have to go to London. I live in Derby. It's kind of far. So I feel like I'm branching out with that again, thinking about some festivals maybe. Yeah. Which I did before when I had the health food blog. But now I'm like, oh, if everyone's there talking about longevity and I'm like, but just be careful because if you try this too hard, you're going to end up with an eating disorder. Yeah. But I think it just makes it more interesting, doesn't it? To have these different little opportunities and things.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe just me. I don't want women to play small. That's just kind of me. And I know that you, in the form when we do a pre-podcast form, that you said you're not quite sure who you are right now, like with like from an identity point of view. Do you know what?
You got me on a bad day because
did I?
Well, because I was doing a photo shoot at the weekend. I did decide to work with a business coach again from January. I think just I was feeling a bit like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing, where I'm going. Like I'd taken a lot of time off stuff last year because I did a training course that you had to do 50 hours like case studies for. Okay, yeah. And so that was like basically a lot of my summer. And then I just neglected Instagram. And then I was like, oh, what am I doing? I haven't been juggling everything, which is fine. Like you don't always do. You learn from your mistakes. I'm like, what was even the question? I've gone off on a whole tangent now. Oh yeah, what was the question?
It wasn't a question. I was saying I want women to kind of small. Don't play small. Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh, identity. Why was I like, oh my God, I don't know who I am? I think because having kids, like you are somebody's mum, and as well, my daughter. Well, she still feeds before bed, and she's 3. But when she was feeding in the day, like slightly TMI, you kind of need to be able to whip your boob out. So I think all my clothes was dressing around that. Yeah. Like not maybe what I just would have worn, or you're thinking I might be going around on the floor, so I don't want to wear a skirt today. So I think that took over so much that I was just like, and also I'm the person who keeps the clothes till they wear out. Yeah. And like a lot of my clothes that were like my business clothes before had worn out. Also, I used to have blonde hair before kids, and that felt like that's not the priority, to go and pay hundreds of pounds every 3 months to sit for ages to get my hair blonde. Like I don't do my nails anymore. It just felt like, oh, actually those things that I'd put on my identity, not that it was my whole identity, it didn't matter if I didn't do them, but like I don't have those. Like when will I have time before this photo shoot to go and get my nails done? I'd have to do it in my working hours. Yeah. And then I didn't feel like I wanted to, and then I just that's what I was saying about I go down a little hole. It's overwhelming, I let myself go down the hole, and then I was like, just pick some clothes for the photo shoot. It's fine. Like,
okay, so this shift from going down the hole to then actually snapping out of it and saying, fuck's sake, just pick those clothes for the photo shoot. It's not that deep. What do you do to get to that point? Because this is exactly the shift a lot of women can't. That's a hurdle a lot of women can't jump over, and then stop and then retrieve and not do the photo shoot.
I'm interested what you do, because do you not just get sick of your shit a little bit? You're just like,
I'm actually really good in calling myself out on my own crap. I'm definitely, it was definitely a huge learning curve for me. I was the queen of procrastination, 100%, because it goes back to self-worth for me. Personally, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but for me, everything related back to self-worth. I wasn't obviously feeling that I was worthy of whatever I wanted to achieve. Therefore, I neglected myself very much. But once I realized what I was actually doing, and that took me a good 10, 15 years, may I just say. So like, I was always just performing and doing. I was definitely in this kind of weird hamster wheel of like, do instead of be. But once I realized this and started, I was getting a bit selfish as well, and realizing I need to do certain things for me to feel better about myself, which then trickled down onto taking an opportunity, doing things I wouldn't usually do. That was for me really the big shift. But I had to be really clear about this. And it goes back to what I teach within my framework, the clarity piece. So for me, it's all about anything you do about clarity. Really.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you just said. And I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier. And you were asking me, like, what are the patterns that I see that we didn't talk about? Okay, well, if you've got that pattern, you know, what is the next steps? What is it that you maybe need to get out of that place when you are being, I guess, a perfectionist, or you're trying highly achieving in your business, and you're like, when can I take that mask off to do it? I think it's that self-love piece that you can be like, well, actually, I do like to get my nails done, or I like to get my hair. I like these things in my business. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But equally, if I don't have those, it doesn't mean that I'm not good enough.
Yes.
If I don't do all of these things, or if something goes wrong, because, you know, a launch might go wrong if you're in that model. Well, not go wrong, but not.
But it will feel better with painted nails. That's for sure. But do you see what I'm trying to say? It's like, yes, of course, those things go wrong, and we need to be kinder to ourselves. And also, there's so many aspects which play into a launch, for example. But equally, I know I need to be in a position where I feel the best about myself and the effort I put into this launch, in order to say, okay, it didn't go like I expected it to, but it wasn't me.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have done this, then I would have probably be much more harder on myself. So I think it is important to actually really start with yourself. But that's my kind of whole teaching. But I also think it's important who you surround yourself with. Because I would be lying if I would say I've done it all myself. I have the right people around me. My family is incredibly supportive. My husband is incredibly supportive. He's probably the one person in my life who calls me out on my bullshit all the time. Like, he says, Katy, look what you're doing. So you need people around you, or a coach, or I have a coach myself. So like, we need people to kind of have a sounding board, don't we? Or a psychologist, or whatever that maybe is. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think as well with some of these things, like, you can bring awareness to it yourself. But I guess where the psychology piece is important is, you know, sometimes we have things that we've learned growing up that we're just so not aware of. Where did this come from? Why am I in this place? And I think as well with behaviors like binging and purging, like, it can bring a lot of shame.
Yes.
Or sometimes even, like you say, like, if your launch hasn't gone well and you're blaming yourself, you're thinking, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
So I guess my work is trying to help people, like, where did you learn to always think when these things happen, you're the problem, there's something wrong with me, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough. Like, where did those things come from? So we can start to be reframing them. We can actually start to shift that belief in a way that feels believable. Because I think often, like, we might want to do positive affirmations or something, but like, you don't really believe it half the time, do you? So it's like, how can we get it to a point that is believable, and things can happen in your life that shake you, but then you don't need to return to, like, those unhelpful ways of coping with it.
That's what I always say. People ask me, what is an unshakable woman? Nothing goes wrong in your life. And I said, no, I wobble. I wobble big time sometimes. But I think the difference is, I realize when I wobble, I know I take it for what it is. Am I perfect all the time? No. Sometimes I cry. Everyone has their low moments, but I can pick myself up fairly quickly, and it won't stop me in my tracks. It won't stop, or it won't make me go back to self-destructive mood. It won't go me back to being too hard on myself, where I'm starting to be unkind to myself, or unkind to the people around me as a result. And I think that's the difference. And that's what you're referring to in terms of the coping mechanisms as well, isn't it? And I think that applies to eating disorders, mental health conditions, whatever. Or
any coping, alcohol, whatever you do that you're like,
control. Control is a huge coping mechanism, isn't it? I love being in control. In a good way, not in a bad way. Rachel, I loved our conversation. I would like to fire some fire questions at you.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on, I had to write them down. So you give your clients message support between sessions, and that's something not done in the clinical psychology field. Do you think those rules are actually designed to protect the client or to protect the practitioner?
Oh, good question. Both. both.
Why is it designed to protect a practitioner? What's the thinking behind it?
Yeah, I guess boundaries. And like I was saying earlier in the episode, I've kept my caseload small so that I can facilitate this.
Yeah.
Whereas can you imagine if you had back-to-back sessions all day and then people messaging you?
Yeah.
And I think as well, part of it is if you're working with people who maybe are in a very vulnerable situation or someone's messaged you between a session like, I don't want to be here anymore, like they're at a crisis point. I think, people wouldn't, have to want to deal with that. So probably ethics does come into it. But I feel like the way that I've set it up, it's quite clear, what is this messaging being used for? Because I have the small caseload. So I think it is both. But I think in some situations it wouldn't be practical for people to do that.
So the wellness industry has built an enormous economy out of telling women what they need more self-love, more self-compassion, more inner child healing, more journaling and manifestation. Honestly, how much of what we've been sold as women in the name of self-compassion is actually working?
I think it's very individual for different people because if we had, 100 people in this room, each person would say a different one of those things has worked for them. So I don't think it's the things themselves. I thought you were taking a different tack with that question to say the wellness industry is also telling us like, you need this collagen matcha and you need these other products because, you've got a wrinkle. Like, I feel like it's both, isn't it? It's saying like, we're going to sell you the solution to the thing that we told you was the problem.
Yeah. Well, marketing in general, and we know the same marketing coach. It's like play on the pain points of your clients. But this itself is from your perspective, is actually could potentially cause more damage than it actually does good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't have anything against collagen matcha, but, in some situations, maybe if people don't have the money to afford that thing, that product, and I bought a collagen matcha. I have been aggressively marketed to when I've tried to leave. It was very difficult to leave the subscription. And I kept being like, come back. I'm like,
you get 50% off.
Yeah,
your next month.
Yeah, they messaged me about 10 times. You got £15 off. And I just think I don't want to be marketed to that way. If I like your product, I'll buy a product and carry it on. But I think if you have got the resources, like in terms of money or things, to be buying different journals and so, but like you don't need to do that. To build more compassion to yourself. There are a lot of free resources and other things as well.
I like to end every episode with one question, and I would like to extend this to you. If you could give younger Rachel one piece of brutally honest advice about business and work, what would that be?
In the nicest way, probably like, don't listen to your dad, because he has different opinions to me about business. And, he is my dad. He has also he's probably given me a lot of good business advice as well. But, some of it, like, I feel like I've really taken to heart and it's made me feel like I'm doing things wrong or I'm not good enough. Or I suppose he's a little bit on your side of things. He probably wants to shake me sometimes, be like, but you could be making more money in this or you could be doing it differently. But I think, well, no, like, for me and my values, I'm quite happy with how things are now, how I can have time off to do certain things. Probably be discerning when you're going to take his advice or not about things.
Thank you for coming to the Unshakable Talks, Rachel. That was lovely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Unshakable Talks. Please make sure to give us a follow and come back next week for another great conversation with another amazing woman. But I also want you to come to my event I'm hosting very soon. If you like listening to my episodes, if you like meeting the women I'm putting on the Unshakable Talks, you will absolutely love my event because you're actually going to be in the room with the women from the podcast or women who do similar things. Tickets are only £10 and everything goes to charity. A charity I've chosen because it aligns fully with the values of the Unshakable Talks and with myself. The link is in the show notes. Get your ticket now.